Look at the debris tracker on this because that's been showing up pretty well as well. It may be getting lost, not quite as prevalent. Let's back this up in time, if you will, Max, on the timeline real quick and see if this matches up. Go back to where it shows up there. There we can see it. Go forward in time a little bit. You can see right there, it kind of became lost here in the last few minutes. So that may be a sign this is weakening, or it may be just what we call cycling, meaning that the tornado may have weakened. If it can get enough energy, it may recycle itself and strengthen once again. Let's hope not, but it's certainly still a fairly strong signature on velocity. Real quick, that definitely shows up much better still with this potential storm as we look at the velocity product on this particular storm real quick. Right in this vicinity. Let's zoom in a little bit closer and see if we can get some of the other roads to show up. Obviously, Edgerly to Quincy Road, then it becomes Edgerly Road as you move farther north. Of course, Route 66 out here along Highway 27, Marcantel Road, Perkins Pipeline Road, the Perkins community itself, Marcantel Road, Edgerly Road just south of the DeQuincy vicinity. If you live anywhere close to what I just named, you need to be in your tornado safe place now. Remember, lowest level of your home, as many walls between you and the outside of your home as possible. Bathroom closets are great places to go. Take your phone with you. Make sure you have our First Alert weather app handy. Use that to continue to monitor our broadcast. And I told you I would tell you when the threat's over. If you're farther west, places like Vinton and Toomey, the Niblets Bluff vicinity, the threat's over for you guys. So, and if you do have any damage information to pass along, please feel free to email us, or you can send us information on Facebook. Would love to know about that, especially anyone there between the Starks and Vinton area where this likely moved through. And I know some of our news crews are probably making phone calls. I'm not sure if we have anyone in the production room at the moment, producer-wise. If we get any calls and can get some calls into Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office, if we get any reports of damage, please feel free to let me know about that. Would love to kind of pass along that sort of information as well if we do get any damage reports, because this probably did produce a tornado. Very strong signature as far as radar is concerned. Let's go back to the regular radar on this real quick, Max, and show folks what's going on. And let's take a much wider view. We'll call this back to our home view, if you will. So western Calcasieu, very western Calcasieu, Starks, Vinton, Toomey, you guys are in the clear. Severe threat is over. So that is good news. But unfortunately, the rest of southwest Louisiana will continue to deal with a lot of rain and I think multiple individual storms that may produce tornadoes at any point. And do I see a new warning showing up, Max? I know we've talked about the one in Cameron Parish, and we need to go back to it anyway, across just west of the Creole vicinity, and keep folks there in Cameron Parish abreast of what's going on with this particular storm. We'll zoom in closer, and you can see there's the storm. It still certainly shows signs of rotation. Quick peek of the velocity on this, because that tells the story much better. And yeah, there's definitely signs of rotation out here. That's just south of the Intracoastal Waterway. I realize where this is at. Not much population. I know some of you have camps and whatnot out here, but definitely keep an eye on this storm as it's moving off to the northeast. But once it crosses the Intracoastal, it will be approaching areas where there is a bit more population. But anyone along Highway 27 needs to be in a safe place. And obviously being in a car, driving, is not a safe place either. So if maybe you're about to head out and maybe leave Creole and head north back toward Lake Charles, give it a few more minutes. Wait this out. This is not worth trying to drive through this storm. I know a lot of you do make that commute back and forth, and maybe vice versa. Maybe you're about to head south toward Creole or Grand Chenier. Wait this out, please. It is not worth trying to drive across this particular storm. Max?
Yes, so I was just monitoring the chat service from the National Weather Service. And again, so for areas such as Starks, you guys are in the clear. And the last warning that was issued was for the one, there was a couple of them. One was for the one in Cameron Parish. The other one was for the tornado-warned storm approaching DeQuincy. Those were the latest updates. Again, still moving off to the northeast at a very rapid pace, around 55 miles an hour or so. And we can see here as the way it is driving the radar, moving up north. Again, once again, we can see the storm approaching. It's just south of DeQuincy right now. I'll take a look at the velocity real quick to see if it's any more defined than it was. And right now we can still see the couplet.
Yeah, right there for sure, just south of DeQuincy. Definitely still some strong signs of rotation, in my opinion, what I see on this storm, Max.
Yeah, so I agree. There's definitely still a lot of rotation with that. I'll pull up the chat again, see if they've given a new update about it.
And let's look at the debris tracker on this, because that was showing up pretty well earlier. We'll see if there's anything. It's a little messier, in my opinion, maybe not showing up as prominently with this. There's still some signs maybe of some debris, but it does lag behind where I'm seeing that on velocity, so maybe that's not. Of course, we don't want that. I don't want to see that, because that would mean a better sign of a more likely tornado that could be on the ground, like what we saw earlier when this moved through the area between Starks and Vinton. Remember when we were tracking that a little while ago? I told you then that looked very impressive. This does not look quite as impressive, at least on debris concern. Max?
Yeah, so still nothing compared to what we saw a few minutes ago, definitely not as impressive. But I'll go back to the velocity just again to show where the couplet is, and even that's a bit messier.
Right there for sure, though, along Highway 27, where you've got that strong signature. That's near the Bueller community there, just that's not too far from Holbrook Park Road. This is going to move just south of Camp Edgewood as well. Likely, this is a very strong signature of rotation. And that's Max's cell phone going off.
Apologies.
Oh, that's okay. We encourage you to make sure you have your alerts active, and sometimes those wireless alerts still get through. So good news to hear those going off. That means there's a new warning that's been issued.
Yes, there is. I'm just pulling up the warning. This actually does include downtown Lake Charles. It's for Calcasieu Parish. It's moving off to the northeast at 65 miles an hour. Very extensive straight line wind was occurring near Carlos. It's just 8 miles, currently located 8 miles to the south of Sulphur. So once again, wait, maybe we could pull up the warning box on the velocity just to show the outline of it. And yeah, we can see that here. In terms of the warning area, again, this includes Lake Charles, Piron Lake, the Carlos vicinity, and again, moving off quickly to the northeast, around 65 miles an hour. So if you're in these locations, you need to take shelter pretty quickly, get to that safe space where you have a lot of interior walls.
And what I went and clicked on, this is actually, I've asked the radar to query the wind. Now, we're not talking about tornado. This is maybe more straight line wind, but because this could be in excess of 60 to 70 miles per hour, and there's still the possibility of brief tornadoes. That's why a tornado warning has been issued by the National Weather Service. But notice, 67, 72 miles per hour. That white line right there is the Calcasieu-Cameron Parish line. Of course, Carlos, there's Highway 27. Of course, Highway 108, that's near Sulphur Southland Field as well. This strong wind is moving off toward the northeast with this thunderstorm. So again, heads up, anyone south of Sulphur, this warning, as Max said, does include the city of Lake Charles as well, as this is moving off toward the northeast. Let's look at the radar on this particular storm, Max, and kind of go back, and then we can do a storm track on it too. But I want to show folks, you can see the very heavy rain falling from Sulphur to Carlos, and if you want to find heck, I'll let you talk real quick on that warning. I'm going to find another graphic real quick to show.
Yeah, sounds good. So once again, we have a lot of heavy rain approaching the Carlos vicinity. And wow, check out those wind gusts. 52 miles an hour at the Lake Charles Regional Airport, just ahead of those thunderstorms approaching the area. So even just in terms of straight line winds, we're not talking about any tornadoes here for the moment, but just in terms of straight line winds, still the potential for damaging winds is certainly there. So tornado or not, I would stress that it's important still to take shelter from these winds. You definitely want to be indoors in a safe place as this line of thunderstorms comes through.
Yeah, for sure. Very active. And I'm hearing the wind now here. The rain very heavy at our downtown studios. Max, I'll let you kind of Let's go back and we'll start our tour because there's multiple different warnings in effect here, and I don't want to ignore any one because none of these are less important than others. Let's start with the one in Cameron Parish, and we'll kind of move north where these individual storms are located. There's this storm that's now moving north of the Intracoastal Waterway. Tornado warning still in effect, though if you're south of the Intracoastal, no doubt you're outside of this warning now. I know the National Weather Service folks are very busy with multiple different warnings in effect. We'll see. This warning may be extended because it's getting close to the edge. Let's look at the velocity on this guy real quick here. You can see it looks a little messier to me, so that's a good sign. That means it's less organized. Hopefully, we'll continue to monitor that storm. Let's move back to the radar and slide to our next warning. That's the one that does include the city of Lake Charles, Carlisle, Sulphur, Moss Bluff included in this particular warning. The warning is not for the cell that's over the city of Lake Charles. I realize it's raining heavily. That's not the cell that could be producing a potential tornado. We can look at the velocity on this real quick and just show you. I don't see anything here, but it's down here. And see these little notches there, and even farther south. Any of those, there's the potential for a brief spin-up tornado. But if we switch to the wind product on this one, Max, it's this that's the more concerning part, especially where we see this blue. That's those 65, 70, 75 mile per hour winds. That's moving northeast as well with this storm. So this may end up moving across portions of central Calcasieu Parish, specifically near the city of Lake Charles. We'll see if it can get farther north or not. In fact, let's push the radar down just a little bit here, Max, and then we'll kind of I want to go back in time and see how this has been moving. That works too. Let's go back in time. The blue is what I'm watching, and yeah, see how it's been moving this northeasterly direction? As this continues moving northeast, no doubt areas out along just south of the city of Lake Charles, it's definitely a Big Lake Road's the word I was trying to find there. Big Lake Road, of course, Highway 384, that places like out near Graywood or anyone in that vicinity, those strong winds are likely to move in your vicinity here in the next 15 minutes or probably less. So heads up, there we zoomed in a little bit closer. In fact, let's zoom in just a little bit more on this, Max, and maybe push the radar down a little bit. You can see the blue line there, the blue colors here. Let's just click on a few of these spots where it is blue and get the radar to tell us wind speeds. Yeah, 60 plus mile per hour winds, maybe even excess of 70 miles per hour. Now, it is important to note that's where the radar beam is at, but because we're very close to the radar, this is very close to the ground, and heavy rain would push these winds down to the ground. So likely damaging straight line winds now moving across the Calcasieu River. That's kind of the outline here, if you will. That's out near Calcasieu Point. So there's Henry Pugh Road, and of course the Moss Lake community. There's West Tank Farm Road. I mentioned Graywood. That's up here in this vicinity where you see Sawgrass Way, and there's Goche Road right there. Areas out here. If you live anywhere close to what I just described, western Calcasieu or southwest of the city of Lake Charles along Big Lake Road, this is moving in your vicinity very soon. Very gusty winds. Let's just treat it as a tornado warning because there is a tornado warning in effect, but definitely straight line winds. And straight line winds can do just as much damage as one tornado. In fact, it can actually do more because it can be spread over a larger area than one individual tornado. But definitely tornado warning is in effect. Max?
Yeah, so just a couple of updates from the National Weather Service chat. One is the tornado warning in Cameron, that was allowed to expire, so that's good news for Cameron Parish, though we'll still have to watch other cells. Another update, though, is for that storm we were tracking, the tornado warning for just south of DeQuincy, the Beauregard area, or Beauregard Parish area. That warning's been allowed to continue, so we're still tracking a tornado. It's been confirmed. Still moving off to the northeast around 60 miles an hour near Ragley. And Wade, can we pull up the debris tracker?
I'm going to come back over here in front of the screen. But this is the area we're talking about. Of course, there's US 171 just north of Gillis. Ragley's there, right there. That is a very strong tornado signature for sure.
Yes, and I'm just going to pull up the debris.
Yeah, go ahead and pull that up for sure.
And
yeah, no doubt. Right there. See that blue? That's definitely a sign of a tornado that is likely on the ground here. Of course, this is southern Beauregard Parish. Let's go back to the velocity on this, and if you want to put the warning on there and maybe zoom in a little closer, we'll make some of the roads show up that are what we're going to call downstream from this. Of course, Ragley, you guys are already in the path of this storm now. Anyone along US 171, it's on top of you now. If you're farther west, south of DeQuincy, you guys are in the clear. Let's move off toward the northeast, out ahead of this storm, if you will. There's Newt Hodges Road. There's Texas Eastern Road. We can keep going off toward the northeast along U.S. Highway 190. That's the Allen and Beauregard Parish line. Of course, Reeves right over here, just off the screen where Topsy Bell Road's at. You guys are all in the path of this storm, and this is still that one that started back near the city of Orange and moved south of the Starks vicinity, and now moving near the Ragley vicinity. This looks like this storm. I told you earlier when I was tracking it that it may be trying to cycle, and that's precisely what it has done. Definitely a very strong sign of rotation. So anyone out along U.S. Highway 190 east of Ragley all the way to Reeves, let's zoom out just a little bit more on this, Max, and we'll show folks the warning actually extends even farther past the Reeves community. We'll zoom out just a little bit more on this one. That warning even goes as far east as near Oberlin, including Dry Creek, because it's moving so fast. This storm, how fast is this one moving? Do you have that up handy?
At 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, this is the one. At one point it was moving 50 to 60. It keeps kind of increasing and decreasing as it cycles, so it's moving rapidly. If you want to do a storm track on this, I see that's what you're getting handy. We'll just zoom from that point right there near Ragley and kind of zoom out, or trying to track it from that point and show folks in the path here.
Yes, I'm just getting the path up.
That works right there, something like that. So there's the Ragley, obviously it's on top of you now. Reeves, within the next about 10 minutes or so, you guys will be in the path of this. Over near the LeBlanc community, Harmony, within about the next 20 minutes or so. And if it holds together long enough, all the way up toward Mitty, maybe by around 5:40 this afternoon. But definitely those of you closer need to stay in a safe place now. Anyone near Reeves, over toward the Ragley's where I'm at first, closer to Reeves, between there, you are in the path of this storm. So get to that safe place. Once again, I know we may have some folks just tuning in. Maybe you just got the warning notification and just tuned in. Remember, a safe place, lowest level of your home, bathroom, closet. Put as many walls between you and the outside of your home as possible. So heads up here, the storm currently located near Ragley, moving off toward the northeast rapidly, 60, 65 mile per hour motion with that particular storm. Do we have any other warnings in place, Max? Let's clear this track and maybe just move farther south, because it actually shows up a little bit better on this graphic.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep going off to the south. We still have that tornado warning we're tracking for the downtown Lake Charles area. I'll bring up the winds with it.
Yeah. Yeah, because this one I think is more probably a straight line wind event than maybe a pure let's track one potential point for a tornado like the one near Ragley, but still very impressive winds. Now I think we're dealing with the fact we're getting so close to the radar, some of this may not be able to show up. But you can see that those areas of blue there just southwest of the radar site. You can see the very strong wind signature. So anyone in the vicinity of the Lake Charles Regional Airport will likely deal with very strong winds here in the next few minutes. Max?
Yes, so again, like you just said, Wade, very strong winds likely approaching near the Lake Charles Regional Airport and eventually even further off to the north and east as well. We just got an update about the tornado ongoing in Beauregard Parish, and once again moving very quickly. It was near Ragley, moving to the northeast at 60 miles an hour. And from the National Weather Service, again, this is a very dangerous situation out ahead of that. Again, this is a confirmed tornado. We know that it's happening. And meanwhile, so we just have that to keep an eye on. I'll go out and switch this to the radar just to see if there's any more warnings we have in the meanwhile. And that looks to be around it so far. Obviously, we still have that activity moving into Cameron Parish, now into Jeff Davis Parish as well. We're going to need to keep an eye on some of those cells to see if they may rotate. And again, a couple of hooks we already saw with them. So again, just something we need to keep an eye on. Wade?
And what I'm looking at, I actually have our camera at the Golden Nugget, our South Lake Charles Skycam pulled up. That's rained that heavily that is basically just blinding the camera. We just cannot see anything because it is raining so heavily there at the camera location. We'll go back, though, to the radar and show what's going on as far as this particular storm is concerned. A couple of concerns. The one near Ragley to me is the most concerning, just because this has the most impressive signature that we have seen all day long, and I want to focus in on that once again. You can see that going on here just east of Reeves along US Highway 190 between Reeves and Ragley, where the greatest threat is located. I'm going to go over to the green screen real quick and kind of point that out for you real quick, and you'll be able to see where I'm talking about right here. This area. There's Ragley. This is US Highway 190. There's Reeves over here. This white line, that is the Allen and Beauregard Parish line. That is where this potential tornado, in fact, we're not just going to say potential, we'll say this tornado, because I think no doubt there is a tornado here. This is moving east fairly quick, 65 plus miles per hour movement on this storm. Let's look at the debris tracker on this cell, because it certainly has been showing up quite prominently throughout most of the day today. And we'll take a look at the velocity, the debris tracker on that one real quick, Max, as we go back to that storm. And
I'm going to go back.
We'll zoom in right there around the Ragley-Reeves vicinity, and
Here's the debris.
There we go. You can see right there, and that matches up. We'll flip back to velocity on this. I just want to show folks that this matches up the area we're watching. Right here, I think that's no doubt where the tornado is. As we slide back over and look at the debris tracker, I'll leave my hand right there. You'll notice that matches up. So no doubt, I think it's safe to say there is a tornado on the ground just southeast of Ragley, about to cross over into portions of Allen Parish, just west of the Reeves vicinity. The question we have, how much farther north will this storm be able to get? And the reason I say that, the air is more stable the farther north you go, but this storm seems to be kind of ignoring those rules. So just a heads up here, southeastern Beauregard, southwestern portions of Allen Parish, very strong signature of a tornado that could be on the ground. Let's look at the velocity, because that too certainly looks impressive from this particular storm, Max.
Yes.
And that's the velocity product there, and you can definitely see the strong signs of rotation out near Doug Addison Road. Anyone close to Reeves, you need to be getting to a safe place now. Topsy Bell Road, Bell Fire Tower Road, of course Highway 113 just south of the Dry Creek area. You guys are definitely in the path of this potential storm, so heads up, get to a safe place now and stay there until we tell you the threat has passed. If you're farther west, closer to Ragley, or definitely west of US 171, the threat is over. So if you live west of US 171, at least here in northern Calcasieu, southern Beauregard, the threat from this particular cell has ended. So you're able to get out of your safe place. And if anyone you live in this vicinity where this potential tornado went through and have any damage, please send that information to us. We'd love to be able to get that information, and maybe even send our crews out. If you have information to send us, you can always email us, news@kplctv.com. You can send us a message on Facebook or Twitter as well. Again, would love to get that information. I don't want you going out and trying to get pictures of this storm, because one, it's raining heavily. We're getting close to nightfall anyway, so it's not safe to try to go out and actually get a picture of this storm. But if you have damage information to send to us after the fact, we'd certainly love to hear that. Let's take a wider view on this picture, Max, and maybe go back to the regular radar and show folks. We'll kind of reset things again in case folks are just tuning in. We're continuing to monitor this severe threat that's still ongoing across southwest Louisiana. It is a very active radar across southwest Louisiana, but we'll start with some good news. I can safely say western Beauregard, western Calcasieu, western Cameron parishes, you guys are in the clear as far as any severe threat is concerned, because basically it's that larger line. Once it moves through, the threat is over. Probably another 30 minutes or so, we may be able to say the city of Lake Charles is in the clear with this storm. Good news, maybe this is a sign this is picking up pace or speed and may move through it a little bit quicker. So at least a little good news. Let's focus on the bad, though. We'll zoom back in on that storm that's including the city of Lake Charles with this tornado warning, and see if we see anything that's showing up now on velocity here. Definitely heavy rain. We can hear it outside of our studio here downtown. Very heavy rain. I don't see anything that's overly jumping out at me as far as a tornado signature on this. Good news, but let's look at that other product. That's the wind product, Max. and still some very gusty winds. Probably want to look a little bit farther south, closer to the radar site. Still see this area blue. That's still likely indicative of winds 60 to 70 miles per hour. That's moving off toward the northeast. You can see the radar showing 45 to 50 miles per hour. And of course, that's out along Big Lake Road. Of course, right there, that's Goche Road, and then Gulf Highways 385, right next to the airport, of course, and Burton Coliseum. If you're anywhere south of Interstate 210, for sure, I think that's a good place where you need to be in a safe place. If you live south of Interstate 210, the threat farther north may be still there. In fact, let's move the radar up just a little bit. We'll switch to the storm relative velocity on this, because that's the one that can sometimes show velocities with respect to tornadoes just a little bit better. I still don't see anything here that's jumping out as there's a spot for potential tornado. So at least that's a little bit of good information, but still very heavy rain. Likely very strong winds are going on across most of Calcasieu Parish, specifically here and now in the city of Lake Charles. Let's take a wider view and is there anything new first before I have you jump anywhere else on the chat?
So far, what I see is, once again, that warning for the tornado warning on this storm here in Calcasieu Parish for Lake Charles. That's so far being continued. Obviously, the one for the warning in Allen and Beauregard Parish, that's also being continued.
And let's move to that storm up into there around the Ragley Reeves vicinity, because again, no doubt that's the one that's most impressive looking. It's maybe trying to show signs that it is a little less organized. That's a positive sign. But as I pointed out when it was south of DeQuincy doing the same thing, this may just be a sign that it is cycling and trying to get its act back together. We will have to watch that closely, but there's still signs of rotation here for sure. It's not quite as strong, and the radar just updated. Kind of the same thing out here just west of Reeves. Let's look at the debris tracker on that one and see. There's still at least broad. It's not as well defined, because if it was a tornado, the debris would be limited into a smaller vicinity, but I would still say that this probably still fits the bill right here just west of Reeves. Let's go back and forth between this and the velocity on this particular storm, and you can see that still matches up right where you would expect a tornado. And since it's been producing one, no doubt, I think it's best to say that this is still likely producing a tornado. And it looks to me like this storm is moving more due east, Max. Let's go back in time on the velocity timeline and just kind of track this. And yeah, this is pretty much moving due east right along US Highway 190. So Reeves, you guys no doubt are in the path of this, need to be in your safe place now. If you're farther west, closer to Ragley, even those of you just east of Ragley now, I think it's safe to say you guys are in the clear as well. But let's don't get out of our safe place just yet. But if you're in the Ragley community proper, I think things have passed. But certainly right there, I think the tornado, if it is still on the ground, likely has crossed the parish line from Beauregard into Allen Parish and is getting closer and closer to the Reeves vicinity. How long is this warning out for until, Max?
Right now, this one is out until 5:45 p.m.
Okay, so we got another 20 minutes or so on that particular storm until it clears. So we'll keep an eye on this one. Let's go back to the storm in that includes the city of Lake Charles, as well as much of South Lake Charles as well, and kind of go back and see that particular storm as well. That warning still in effect, and it's also in effect until 5:45 this afternoon. So we got about another 20 minutes with this particular storm as well. And you can see they've trimmed up the warning. They outlined right here. So let's look at the velocity on this particular storm as well and see if there's anything that shows up. Again, these little notches like that, anywhere there, certainly there could be a brief spin-up tornado. I don't see a signature that jumps out at me of again saying there's a definitive tornado, but this storm has definitely had a history of producing straight line winds too. That can be just as destructive as a tornado. In fact, as I said earlier, probably even worse, because it's usually spread over a larger area. What did they say in this particular warning, Max, when they sent the update a few minutes ago?
Right now, when they sent this about 10 minutes ago, they mentioned a severe squall line. It's capable of producing tornadoes, but even if it doesn't, the threat for extensive straight line winds is definitely present and moving quickly off to the northeast at around 65 miles an hour. But again, the straight line wind threat is very noticeable for this
Right.
one.
So we're kind of dealing with two different type storms. The one near Reeves and Ragley, that one no doubt was a tornado. This one, the National Weather Service is taking the safe route, and it's the correct one in my opinion, to issue a tornado warning instead of just a severe thunderstorm warning, because anywhere along this line, there still could be a brief spin-up tornado. But as Max just said from that warning, even if there's not a tornado, the straight line wind aspect can still cause extensive damage. And remember, that would be spread over a larger area. Whereas, if there was a tornado at one point, yes, it would be destructive in that path, but straight line winds are usually a much larger area they cover, which means more and more folks would be impacted. So heads up across portions of the city of Lake Charles. This is now getting close to moving through portions, especially south of 210. I think is where the strongest threat is at the moment. But don't want to let the guard down. Those of you inside the 210 and I-10 loop downtown, the threat still exists for everyone inside this warning. Let's go back to the north, to that storm up closer to Reeves, and see how it looks. And it doesn't look as impressive to me, and that's a positive sign. I think the velocity product's kind of suffering from a little bit of an error. There we go. Okay, that was the other velocity. Still a sign there, I think, near the Reeves vicinity of a potential rotation. I'm going to slide off camera real quick, and you can see there near the Reeves vicinity a very strong indication of potential tornado. I think still at least potentially on the ground. Has there been an update on that warning, Max?
Yes, they just came out with a new warning as of around 5:30, and the warning is extended, but the good news is now, and I'll bring up more of the actual text behind it, instead of it being
News that matters to you anytime you need it. This is Local News Live.